guys, welcome to and/or welcome back to my channel. Yet another week, and as you already know, we're here to review episode 5 of season 4, Ready to Love. No, it took me some time to get to the place that you wanted me to be. Oh, I can't sing to save my life, 'cause I'm ready to love. Terrible, I know, but let's begin. So the episode opens up this week in the men's lounge, and as usual, we know the power goes flip-flopping. So this week, Uncle Tommy lets the men know that the power is back with them, and he tells them that at the end of the week, they're gonna have a special event, which is a little bit different because it's a formal event. It's actually a masquerade ball. However, leading up to the weekend, leading up to the ball, they still need to keep dating, getting to know each other, you know the drill by this point. So we flip over to the first date of the show, which is actually a group date, and there's AJ, Alexis, Kyra, and Jason, right? And so they go to an ice skating rink, and it's just the four of them. So first we have paired off Alexis with Jason, as no surprise there, and then Kyra with AJ. So we start off by focusing mainly on Kyra and AJ, and they're getting to know each other. If it's one thing I noticed, Kyra is very confident. She went out, started skating by herself. She was a little bit wobbly, but the confidence was there, so AJ caught on to her, and it was sweet. He really tried. Eventually, they went aside and sat down and started talking to each other, and AJ reminds us in this confessional that they know each other, they have history, but he tells Kyra in person on the date that she's actually one of the women in his top. Kyra tells us in her confessional that she actually really likes AJ. She sees him as someone who is educated, who is about his business, all that good stuff, but the only thing is they really only get somewhere in their conversation when he puts aside the BS personality, whatever that means. I guess it means he's not always as serious or as open as she would like him to be. However, she does say that she is excited to see where the relationship goes and if it keeps blossoming. So I would say there is something there. At least it's mutual liking. I do think AJ might like Kyra a little bit more because somehow I think she still has it in the back of her mind, the past events, the fact that they've dated before and that it didn't go so well. But I think if we keep watching, it's possible it could grow. Anyway, cut to Alexis and Jason. As we know, she is completely smitten with him. She is a wobbly mess, so he has to be holding on to her to ensure that she doesn't fall down on her skates. And she tells us in her confessional that she's excited to see him, but she's at the point now where she wants to know if he actually likes her, or is it just a case where he does like her and he's maybe just getting around to saying it, or he's a bit undecided, or if he genuinely just doesn't like her. So on the date, she actually asks him, her first question is if he would have a problem entering a relationship with someone who already has a child, because as we know, Alexis has a little boy. Or would he prefer to start fresh with someone where he could, have their own kid or their own child together? And he didn't even answer the question. I feel like he just went straight to saying that he's having a hard time. He was telling us in his confessional that he's just having a really hard time seeing her as more than a parent. He keeps saying that, and I mean, he's been saying that for a couple of weeks now, so yeah, it's obvious to us that there's just nothing there, but he tells us anyway that he's having a hard time seeing her as more than a parent. He only sees her as, a parent. He's not attracted to her. So she basically says to him, on the date, that she's at that point where obviously she wants to know, and she would rather he just say it directly to her than kind of giving her false hope. And it's at this point now that they kind of stop skating and sit down, and he says, well, in that case, I need to be transparent. I'm just not feeling you that way, and of course in her confessional she says to us she's disappointed. We knew she would be, but then this is the part that I felt like she could have done without adding on the date. She was like, oh yeah, it's cool. She took it really well, by the way. She wasn't abrasive or anything, but then on the end of that she said, it's okay, you can go for who you really want, and I already know who that is. And he kind of just, looked up. I think he felt a little bit awkward by that statement, as he should. But yeah, so that was the end of that, guys. So Jason and Alexis are done for now because he was very honest. He didn't string her along or anything. So once that date ends, we move on to the second date of the episode, and it's an individual date. It's Ronald and Stacy. So Stacy comes over to Ronald's house for, I guess they're having like a little bit of a lunch, but it's in his kitchen, so it's at his home. He says to us in his confessional that he heard that she likes champagne and seafood, so of course that's what he went with. I thought that was very thoughtful. At least he did a little bit of research to find out what she would actually enjoy. In her confessional, she tells us that, she thinks he's a very genuine and sweet guy, and they made a connection at whatever previous meeting they had before last week's episode. And so, of course, now she's happy to spend some quality time with him and get to know him a little bit better. He asked her what it's like starting over, given that she was already married and, been through a divorce and everything. So she says, I'm not entirely sure she actually answered the question, but she said she's been divorced for about 4 years now, and he asked her, like, so what was the barrier, like what was stopping her from moving on for 4 years? And she says, well, one, she needed time to heal, and also she needed to give her children, which she has 3, time to kind of readjust to the new structure of things before moving on. But now she's at a point in her life where she's ready for a new partner, someone to be there for her, and rub her back or something like that, she said. So then she asks him, how does he feel about this whole dating process? How has it been going? And again, I don't think he answered the question, but he said that he knows that she and another person who is in his top are close or have become very close friends. And immediately she cut to, like, she says, oh, you mean frick and frack? And then in her confessional, which it cuts to from their date, she's telling us how from the moment she met Chrysanthemum, she knew like she was her soul sister. She fell in love with her, and they're just so close. I mean, I guess that's good, but the whole thing was a little bit weird. Like, I don't know. It was just a little bit much. But anyway, he was like, yeah, the dynamic duo. So I guess I'm sure he feels good about himself, the fact that these two friends and they both really like him. I must say a part of me is wondering if Stacy now likes Ron because Chrysanthemum likes Ron and because they're close. But I guess we have to keep watching to see where that goes, because I do find it a little bit weird that if you have such a close relationship with a woman, you would be interested in the same guy. Like, isn't that against like the sister code, the girl code, the woman code, something? Like, I feel that that's super weird to me, but okay. Anyway, guys, he laughs it off, and then she tells him that the other day she went to Chrysanthemum's house and they were talking to each other, and basically it's become obvious that they're both interested in him. And so she continues by saying, oh, like, but they're at the point where they need to know where the real connections are, and then directly ask him, who exactly are you feeling, I guess, more connected to? In other words, who is your number one, me or her? Guys, if awkwardness was a person, dude was like, he said like 3 different times, and then the stutters came. He was like, Chrysanthemum, guys, I died. Physically died laughing. Like, he was so uncomfortable. The whole thing threw him off, and she was just like, come on, Ron, we're grown-ups, tell me the truth, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, he got the words out, and he was just basically like, well, it would have to be Chrysanthemum, because from day one, he had a connection with her because they like the same things, travel, goofing off, hanging out, whatever. And so, as we know, that killed that date, because no woman wants to hear about your connection with another woman. So he basically told us in his confessional that it made the date super awkward, and he feels like it killed the connection between the two of them, because obviously she basically forced him to make a choice, make a decision, and he is gonna go with Chrysanthemum because he does feel a stronger connection with her, and he has had a connection with her since the beginning. So it's safe to say that's that on that relationship. Oh my goodness. So Chris and Amber are the next date, and I think they're just the cutest thing. But anywho, guys, why does it look like they met in somebody's backyard? But at first I was like, oh, cute. They went for a picnic or something. And I was just like, nah, bro, they're definitely in somebody's backyard. But anyway, they were doing some sort of meditation date, and Chris basically gets Amber comfortable, and then they start doing their meditating and start saying out loud some mantras and affirmations. And the good thing about it is, in her confessional, she tells us that that's something that they both like. So it's good that they did a date, which, you know, it was clear that that's something that both of them would enjoy. She really liked it, because at the end he asked her like how she felt about it, and she was like, oh, it's great with the sun and everything. So they were all giggly and smiley. Like, I was smiling through their entire date because they were so into each other. So I was just cheesing like I was a part of the date. So she tells us in her confessional that she likes him a lot. She feels like their connection is really natural and genuine, because it almost feels like they have been friends, but also there is a romantic interest as well. I mean, it doesn't get better than that, so the only way to go is up. She literally said that. So that's amazing. And then I got really nervous for Chris, because they moved away from where they were meditating and moved to a little area where they could have lunch or drinks at a table. And I don't know, it's like a garden setting, a table. I'll put a picture. And she basically asks him, what are his intentions? What does he feel about marriage? And oh my God, guys, I got flashback to Naya. Like, I started to get super nervous for him, because he started out like, oh, if you want to be married, we can be married. And I was like, well, what kind of answer is that? You know, so she kind of looked at him like, oh, I'm not really sure where you're going with this. So I was super nervous for him. But then he was like, what he means is marriage is not necessarily the end goal for him. He's okay if, you know, he has a connection with someone, they can be life partners or take things slow. But obviously, if he meets someone and marriage is an important step for them to take, he's also okay with that. I held my breath, because I was like, oh, she's about to do a whole Naya. But instead, she actually was like, she agrees, she feels the same way. And I was like, whew, I can breathe. I'm happy for him, because I was nervous. Yeah, so their date ended really well. They hugged it out. It was all positive, good vibes, good laughing, and then they walked off hand in hand. So I think this relationship, if everything goes well and there are no sudden turns or bad answers, they will be one of the couples at the end. So the next date we see is a group date, and we have Ronald, we have Dietrich, Joelle, Vernisha, Tressa, and Chrysanthemum. And together they're at a group salsa lounge type of date. And Ronald is actually the instructor, because they don't have an assigned instructor. After group dancing, they split up into individual couple groups, if that makes sense. So we have Joelle and Tressa. No, so we have Joelle and Vernisha, Tressa and Dietrich, and Chrysanthemum and Ronald. That's correct. All in separate rooms. The first couple we zoom into is Joelle and Vernisha, and they're being all cute, laughing, having a good old time. And it's very clear that the connection that they had is still there. He tells us in his confessional that he really likes her because she's lived life, she's been through some things, overcame some things, and the way their connection and their vibe is going, that right now she is definitely his number one. And then in her confessional, which we see immediately after, she also says that she's enjoying their connection. She thinks they have a good connection. She finds him to be genuine. She says she finds the connection between them to be easy, natural, and not forced, and that's why she likes him. So next we see Ronald and Chrysanthemum dancing, and while they're dancing, they were talking, and she basically tells him that she was in the ladies' lounge recently, and the ladies were talking about their tops. Tops meaning top guys who's in their number 1, 2, 3, and apparently he has another number one, because in her confessional she says that Alexis confirmed that Ronald for Ronald, she is his number one. So I guess what Chrysanthemum really wanted to know is how true that is. Is that the case? And in his confessional, he basically says to us, the audience, that he likes Chrysanthemum. However, he has a bit of a stronger connection with Alexis. So right now, I guess he's a bit divided, a bit torn. And I'm thinking to myself, how many ones does Ron have? Because it seems like every date he has, he spends the date telling that date that there's somebody else that's above them. So apparently he has a top three. And of course, we know Stacy, Chrysanthemum, and apparently Alexis is the one in the number one spot. So automatically, she stops moving as much, and she being Chrysanthemum, and she says, okay, okay, okay. She says that like 3 times. So you know she is not with it. She's not having it. This is not cool for her at all. Cut to her confessional, and she's just like, look, he was not in my number one. There was somebody else in my number one, and he moved up to number one after their first date. And so she's just not having it. She doesn't like it, and she says to him like he needs to figure things out because she doesn't like being number two. Of course, instead of that having a positive effect, it ends up rubbing him the wrong way because he sees it as he is going to rank number 1, 2, and 3 based on the connection that he has with people. And he says to her that they have a little bit more to uncover, like a couple more layers. And when I tell you she rolled her eyes back like twice, it's almost like, yeah, whatever, I need to be number one. So in his confessional, he was saying he really didn't like that because rather than being a little bit more concerned with what she could do to, you know, I guess make the rapport between them a bit better, she was so focused on being number one. And he felt like that had more to do with her ego and what she wanted rather than being a little bit more concerned with the connection that she had with him and how they could make that better. She ended up ending the date by saying that she doesn't want to dance anymore. So that date ended a bit dry, a bit awkward, of course, after all of that, because it killed the vibe, essentially. Yeah, so after them, we didn't get to see Tressa and Dietrich at the salsa spot, but a little bit later, they met up for a date together, and they ended up meeting at a spice shop for their one-on-one date. So as soon as she's arriving to enter the shop, it cuts to her confessional where she tells us that she likes the fact that Dietrich likes her and all the other guys agree that she has the best personality, but she's never heard of anybody saying like, oh, you know, she's got a nice pair of personalities. I guess she wants to know that there's more beyond that, an actual attraction. And then we cut to his confessional where he's actually saying that he does want to see what else is there, or I guess explore more, but he feels like on the date he's definitely getting a bit more of a same homeboy vibe. So in his confessional, he basically says that in this date he wants to see where the attraction is with her, or if there is an actual attraction beyond personality. And I mean, they tried to bond over spices. You know, he was talking about a particular spice that he liked, and she was asking him if he knew another African spice. They seem to have a love for cooking, but it seems like they don't like the same things. So for me, the day was a bit dry. It was very awkward. And in his confessional, he also said that he, you know, of course he wanted to explore to see what else was there, but in this date, he's definitely still getting the homegirl vibes. So it was pretty obvious that he just wasn't getting the attraction that I guess he was looking for. And then she says to him that, you know, she's used to the fact that a lot of men would normally be attracted to voluptuous women, meaning want to sleep with but not necessarily want to date. And so she wants to be clear about what's happening between them. So basically she was asking him like, you know, are you interested? Are you attracted? And he answered her in a very cryptic way, kind of like how your dad would tell you that a boy doesn't like you. You know, he was like, oh, if a man is interested in you, you will know. You won't need to ask because he'll be doing everything he's supposed to do to get your attention. I feel like he could have just been straight and just been like, oh, he wanted to explore and to see what was there, and there's nothing there. But he was very cryptic in the message. Anyway, she got the hint. You don't need to be blunt with her. She can read in between the lines. So cut to her confessional, and she was like, she's definitely not getting the impression that he wants to lick spices off her arm. So she was like, y'all, this man is not interested in me. And she was very cool about it. She said that's okay. She wants to explore other connections, other relationships, and it's totally okay that he's not attracted to her. And they left the date all hugged up, but in a very homey way. So, and that's where that date ended. So it's safe to say that's the end of that. That relationship is also not going anywhere. So it's finally time for the masquerade ball, and one of the first people we cut to is Alexis, just being oh so extra. Sis had a train that was just like miles long, acting like she was coming to her own wedding. And when we cut to her confessional, she was like, oh, she has to look good. She's dressed like this because she needs to manifest that a wedding is in her future. And she didn't even say it like that. She said it she just sounded stupid. And then she was like, oh, she has to keep up with her brand of being Alexis Fly. Am I the only one who feels like she really doesn't dress? She doesn't dress awfully. But I don't see anything that's so wonderful about the way she dresses either. Like, I just don't get it. Anyway, Alexis was over there hyping herself up, and the true belle of the ball came in, somebody who did not need any hyping up of thine self. So Liz came out of her, I guess, like a SUV or whatever you want to call it, and Liz was looking so beautiful, and I was surprised. I said, come through, Liz. Let them know, okay? Sis had on a red dress. Rack was sitting. It was sitting, okay? And she had a little bit of a peekaboo because it was like a one strap shoulder dress with a slit and a train of her own, okay? So listen, she looked really nice. And of course, in her confessional, she says she felt like the belle of the ball. David, she thinks his mouth dropped, which obviously he was really impressed with the way she looked. In his confessional, he was like, she looks good, she looks great, she looks amazing. He said it like 3 different ways. He was like, hair is laid, earrings on point, dress on point. I was like, okay, David, tell us how you really feel. Like, he was really enjoying the way she looked, which I was happy because obviously she wanted to make an impression on him. Later on, we found out that she thinks that they have such a great connection because they have similar values and they were raised similarly. And so she is with it. I think the only thing that was a little bit off to me is when they were ready to go into the ball, David said, everyone already thinks we're together and I want them to think we're together. So come on. And he kind of just like grabbed onto her arm. I don't know. It was a little bit for me, but I think he meant it in a good way also. Like, oh, you look really good and I want to show you off. I want everybody to think that we're together. But I kind of feel that Liz needs to kind of keep her options open because while she may seem to have a lot in common with David, I do think that she needs to give it a bit more time and get to know him a bit better before becoming too invested. It seems to me that she is quite invested. I don't know if he's as invested as she is, but she seems to be very smitten, like almost in love with him. Suddenly, Jason is even looking at Liz like, he was like, oh my God, like her swag, her sway is so different. Like he didn't expect her to come the way she came. Okay, that's when you know you're looking good. So she definitely attracted somebody else or new eyes. And then we saw Uncle Tommy coming in, fresh to death, and he introduced his wife, Mrs. Jacqueline Miles, as his co-host for the evening. Anyway, he tells everyone that tonight is their chance to really get to know each other, take their mask off. Of course, that's not so literal, but more so figuratively, and really get to know each other's hearts, which means, look deeper, essentially. Cut to Stacy, who is talking to Ron, and rather than to be talking to Ron about herself, oh no, she's campaigning for all the reasons why Ron should like Chrysanthemum. So she's like, oh, has she moved up to number 1? And I don't know, the whole thing was just strange. He looks really annoyed, and I don't know if she's just not picking up on that. And in his confessional, he even tells us, the audience, that he understands why Stacy would be on Chrysanthemum's side, but at the same time, he's finding her constantly, I guess, going on about it to be quite irritating, which is expected. I think for me, the creepy part was when she said women like us. She literally speaks like she and Chrysanthemum are one person. She just needs to butt out and mind her own business. Like, now that he doesn't like you, who is your connection? I think that's what she should be worried about. Then we see all these clips of different people having fun. So we see Amber's mingling. We saw Liz and Jason talking. So we know that, at least they got some conversations in. We see, not Liz and Jason, Kyra and Jason, sorry. Then we saw Liz on the dance floor having a good old time. Cut to Alexis, who is in the corner on the steps in her, fly attire by herself. And Mrs. Jacqueline actually walks over to her and wants to know, like, what's going on? Why are you over here by yourself? She says to her that she was actually waiting on her. She wanted some advice on, marriage, how to make it last, how to move forward. Because, I don't know, Alexis is speaking like she is 1000% sure that she's having a marriage in the future. She keeps saying she's manifesting it, but it's coming across a bit on the creepy side. Like, I think she needs to focus on actually making connections, because she's so sure marriage. Like, she's planning a marriage, but there's no groom. Anywho, they talk, and Alexis says it makes her feel a lot better. She feels better about the prospect of marriage and making it last. Yada yada yada. Then we cut to Stacy, Ron, Chrysanthemum, and Chris, who are standing and talking, and basically Chris asks them, what's up with this relationship? Why does everyone call you guys frick and frack? Which I think it really is just Stacy who calls them that. And Stacy again is just like, oh, we're best friends. And she's even telling the bartender, oh, Chrysanthemum needs champagne. Don't ask. Anywho, so apparently Chrysanthemum also feels the same, because then she cuts to her confessional where she's telling us, the audience, that, she loves Stacy and she feels like that's her best friend, blah, blah, blah. They love each other. Okay, so obviously they found their sister soul girl mate, but the issue is they're always together. So even when they were speaking, or really it was Chris who was engaging them, Ron was there, but he really was just looking so irritated. And he was looking around like he just needs anything, any excuse. He just needs somebody to wink in his direction and he would have been gone, because he looks like he's so over the both of them. And then obviously we get some, I guess, proof that what we're thinking is actually accurate, because Chris in his confessional tells us that everybody, meaning all the guys, they're kind of over those two, because you literally cannot speak to Chrysanthemum without Stacy's, what did he say? He said without Stacy's input, interruption, or involvement, something like that. It was like an I situation. So he was just like, it's just difficult. Anyway, eventually Uncle Tommy comes over and pulls both of them aside, or asks them to come aside to kind of speak to them about, their relationship, and to tell them that while it's good, obviously at some point they need to separate, because especially given that they like some of the same guys. I'm guessing that's Ron. I don't know if there's somebody else there that they both like. So he was just like, it's not gonna work if y'all are always together. So I guess Stacy took that to mean that some of the guys were threatened by their relationships, or their relationship. And she was just like, I think it was Chrysanthemum who said, oh, they didn't plan to, I guess, like each other this much, so they're just gonna have to deal with it. Guys, next we have Jason and Liz, who move off to go sit on a couch by themselves so they can have a little bit of a one-on-one, get all close and personal, So, guys, if we didn't know that Jason did not like Alexis before, we know now, because he is looking at Liz like she is delectable. Listen, he's sitting up close, his arm is extended in her direction. Her hair was down. He gently moved it out of her face. He was all smiles, so attentive. I was like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. This is the second time we're seeing him like this, but I think it was even worse this time. But in a good way. Not that it was bad. Not that it was a bad thing. I'm just saying, when he likes someone, he makes it very obvious. And I think for the second time too, what we're seeing is when he likes someone, he is the one who makes the move. Because with Kyra, it was similar. He liked her and he made it his mission to get her on a one-on-one. And it's the same thing that he did with Liz, because in his confessional, he actually tells us that once he saw her come in tonight, he started looking at her differently. And he said he made a mental note in his head that at some point at this ball, he needs to get a one-on-one with her. So for sure, if we didn't know before, we know now. He definitely was not interested in Alexis, because he not once did he make the move. So Liz is loving the attention, and Jason asks her if she could see herself with someone like him. Like, does she think he's a match? And she responds by saying that she's generally attracted to someone's spirituality, and she considers their upbringing. And so that's what attracts her to him. I guess she's letting him know that it's not just physical with her. She needs to get to know him beyond just looking at him, because obviously he's physically attractive. She also goes a step further by telling him that she's actually she's looking for someone who's striving to be the best version of themselves right now. So he confesses to us that he is definitely feeling Liz, which I did not expect, because also I think Liz is significantly older than Jason. But yeah, he seems really into like her tonight, how she looks, how she carries herself. He even told her that she is giving him Michelle Obama presents. I think the thing with Jason is when she asked him, she actually asked him who is in his top and why. And he was like, oh, he cursed, but they laughed about it anyway. And he said, rather than talking about other women, kind of like what Ron does, he focused on her. He told her that she's actually in his top, and the reason why is because she has a certain presence about her. She's ladylike, she's pleasant. And I think that is the thing with Jason. I have noticed that the women who he has gone after for himself, they definitely have that in common. They're very ladylike, or I guess the general perception of what a lady should be. They're very soft-spoken. They're assertive and confident, but they're not loud. I think that's the difference with Alexis is loud. You know what I mean? Like she does a lot, a whole lot. And I think that was the difference for why he could not see her as attractive. After all of those compliments, I'm telling you, Liz is on cloud nine. She is, oh my God, she's just like smiling, cheesing. And she tells us in her confessional that, of course, she likes David, but she's excited to be able to go out with Jason and get to know him, because what she really wants to see is if it was just a moment, or if there's a connection that can go beyond tonight and actually be like a lifelong connection, because obviously she's looking for a lifetime partner. So I guess we have to keep watching and see where that connection goes. But I thought it was very sweet. I mean, Liz's hand was on his knee, and he tells us in his confessional, like, that was making him feel the feels. So there's definitely something there, and I'm a little bit excited about this one. I don't know why. Finally, we see Ron and Chrysanthemum alone without Stacy, and they're talking. They seem to be, having a good little vibe. Something tells me Ron is not that much into her anymore. But anyway, they're talking, but it doesn't last long, because Alexis comes over and immediately he leaves Chrysanthemum's side to go hug Alexis. And I'm telling you, Chrysanthemum was not happy. She was over there looking like, And even Ron in his confessional says at that point he could literally feel Chrysanthemum's eyes burning into the back of his head. She was not impressed. So Alexis confesses to us that she really likes Ron, but at the same time, she didn't say AJ was her number one, but the way she said it is, I like Ron, but I still really like AJ. So that gives me the impression that while she likes Ron, AJ might be her number one. She goes on to ask Ron how he feels about Chrysanthemum, because she says that the last time all the ladies were together in the lounge, Chrysanthemum and Stacy definitely gave the impression that Ron and Chrysanthemum's connection was just oh so strong. So they gave the impression that Chrysanthemum was his number one, and I guess that she was tripping by thinking that she was the number one. So she just wanted confirmation as to whether or not that was true. So he confirmed that at some point he did tell her that, but feelings changed, but he still definitely does have a connection with her. And then she asked him if he thought that she was serious, and he said he's not sure, but he's sure that if she does have serious feelings, she will eventually open up about that. So he just needs to see where things go. Cut to Joel and Vernisha. They're at the ball in the little corner by themselves, all booed up, and here comes Jason taunting them, like, "Oh, you guys are definitely gonna get married, and he's gonna be the best man at the wedding." It was just such a cute little light moment, you know. At least they're not having any issues in their relationship. And remember, Jason and Joel have a little bit of a bromance, so that was a nice little moment. And that was where the night ended. And so the next time we see all the fellas, it was at the gentleman's lounge with Uncle Tommy. And of course, as it goes at the end of every episode, he wants to know who's who, what are they thinking, who do they like, who do they don't like, you know. So that's where we go. As expected, AJ says he likes Kyra. Joel says he likes Bernicia. David says he likes Liz. So everything we were already expecting. Chris says he likes Amber. And yet again, Ron makes it very clear that he sees Alexis as his number one. Like, he explicitly said that. So I think it's fair to say that Frick and Frack have moved down on the list even lower. Anyway, so then came the who do we don't like, and AJ started out by saying he's not feeling the whole Stacy and Chrysanthemum, and the main reason for that is he can't seem to be able to talk to one of them without the interruption of the other, and he's not feeling it. So a lot of other men chimed in about that, but more so especially a lot of men chimed in about Stacy. David was not feeling Stacy. I think it was Joel who said that he thought Stacy was quite aggressive, and somebody else. So check my notes, and it turns out it was actually Ron who explicitly said Stacy is his bottom. So before, I think she was his number 3. Now he was like, that's my bottom. Like, he said bottom. He's not feeling her. He's irritated by her. It's a no for him. And then on top of that, I think it was Dietrich who also said he's not feeling Tressa. The funny thing is, Dietrich is not, outside of Tressa, there's nobody else who he's vibing with. So by him sending her home, I really do think he's eventually sending himself home next week, because nobody else is feeling him. And Joel also said he still only sees Tressa as, you know, a friend, and so do the other guys. Basically, it's a whole communion. Everybody's saying the same thing about her. They like her, she's nice, whatever, but they're not attracted to her. That's just it. Even Jason said so. So with that said, naturally, the bottoms were Stacy and Tressa, and so David gets nominated to speak to Stacy, because, you know, with every elimination, somebody has to go to talk to them, and I believe it was Joel, who was nominated to speak to Tressa. So we first start off by seeing David talking to Stacy, and it's funny how the tables have turned, because if we remember last week when it was the woman's time to vote men out, she definitely tried, in my opinion, to get rid of David, but it didn't really work out. He was in the bottom, but he wasn't the one who got sent home. And ultimately, he ended up telling her that the guys have decided that she was not ready to love. And I mean, she didn't take it badly, but she definitely started crying. I didn't expect that from her. And she was saying she felt shocked. She felt cheated. I don't know what that meant. She's acting like she's accepting an Oscar or something, and she got cheated. But anyway, and then to her confessional, she was like, "Oh, I feel like I disappointed my kids." Yeah, now that I'm saying it out loud, she definitely spoke like, you know, when you think you're accepting an award and it didn't work out. Anyway, she said she feels like she's disappointing her kids because they trust the process and they trusted that it would have worked out, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, she got voted out and she left. David hugged her and she left. Cut to Tressa and Joel. This is what I did not expect. I thought they were going to let her stay, but it turns out because nobody's there to advocate for her in a romantic way, they decided to make it a double elimination, and she also got voted out. I feel really bad for her because, again, Joel was telling her the same thing, and I know she's tired of hearing it, because I'm tired of hearing it, that she's cool, she's whatever, she's a queen, but they don't like her. Like, if she's such a queen, why not give her a chance and get to know her? but none of them are attracted to her, so they had to let her go. She took it well. She just said, oh, it's cool, she understands, and she knows somebody's out there somewhere for her, and she was really sweet about it. Like, yeah, she's a sweet person. And that was that. So both of them ended up going home this week. So on next week's episode, we're back to the ladies, and Uncle Tommy is telling them that this week you're gonna go out with the person who isn't your number one. So think of who is your number one and don't go out with that person for the week. So that's their first task at hand. We see that a couple dates will happen. I wrote it down. We see that Jason is going to be going out with Liz, which I'm excited for, and Alexis is gonna go out with Ron, and apparently Amber and Joelle will be going out, which I think is a very odd pairing. And at the end of that preview, we see Alexis telling AJ that he needs to get his things together because she doesn't know why their relationship is moving the way it is. She doesn't know if it's because of Kyra or somebody else, but he needs to get it together. And just based on the look on his face, he's not going to take that very well. And that's it for this week, guys. So see you next week for episode 6. Until then,